Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Gopi Jana Ballava Giribaradhare. Gopi Jana Ballava Giribaradhare. Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana. Yamunatira Vanachare. Yamunatira Vanachare. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Gopi Jana Ballava Giribaradhare. Gopi Jana Ballava Giribaradhare. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yamunatira Vanachare. Yamunatira Vanachare. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Jai Radha Radhanatha Radha Radhanatha Radha. Jai Radha Radhanatha Radha Radhanatha Radha. Jai Radha Radhanatha Radha Radhanatha Radha. Jai Radha Jai Radha Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe. Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Janishvad Paramahansa Paravajacharis Tadashisamad. His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. ISKCON Samstapakacharya Srila Prabhupada Ki. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Ki. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Ki. Srimati Radharani Ki. Shri Radhashtami Mahotsava Ki. Shri Radhashtami Mahotsava Ki. Shri Radhashtami Mahotsava Ki. Go Premanande. How small can we make a garland? Jai, excuse me. Jai Jai Sri Caitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Sri Caitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Sri Caitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So devotees, a very extremely and most extremely happy Radhashtami to all of you. Shri Radhashtami Mahotsava Ke. Srimati Radharani Ke. Shri Shri Radha Radhanatha Ke. Srila Prabhupada Ke. Hare Krishna. Yes, devotees, so on this most sacred and wonderful and just glorious and just merciful in the extreme wonderful, wonderful occasion of the appearance day of Srimati Radharani, we will read some things about her. We will read from Sri Caitanya Charitamrita, the Adi Lila, the 4th chapter, because if we want to learn something about Srimati Radharani from the books of Srila Prabhupada, this is the place to read it from. Yes, okay. So we will begin. We'll read a series of verses actually, but we'll begin with Adi Lila chapter 4, the confidential reasons for the appearance of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And we will read verse 82, first of all. Govinda Nandini Radha, Govinda Mohini, Govinda Sarvasva Sarvakanta Shiromani. Yes, right. So this is very appropriate verse. There are quite a number, but this is very appropriate verse considering the occasion. And the translation is, Radha is the one who gives pleasure to Govinda. And she is also the enchantress of Govinda. She is the be-all and end-all of Govinda, and the crest jewel of all his consorts. Let us just repeat this. Let us just repeat this responsively. You can just repeat after me. Radha is the one who gives pleasure to Govinda. And she is also the enchantress of Govinda. She is the be-all and end-all of Govinda. And the crest jewel of all his consorts. Yes, so this is just, it's really wonderful. Truly wonderful. So we will read a few other verses. Just looking at the same point from little bit different perspectives. We'll read now from same 4th chapter of the Adi Lila, verses 74 and 75. Well, actually, why not? Because we have time, don't we? We have time. We have time. I'm going to read verse 73 first because it kind of sets the scene. Krishnere karaya yaiche rasa asvadana kridara sahaya yaiche shuna vivarana. Translation. Now, please listen to how Lord Krishna's consorts help him taste rasa and how they help in his pastimes. Right. And then 74, 75, here we go. Krishna Kanta Gana Deki Trivida Prakara Eka Lakshmi Gana Pure Mahishi Gana Ara Vrajan Gana Rupa Ara Kanta Gana Sara Shri Radhika Haite Kanta Ganera Vistara. The beloved consorts of Lord Krishna are of three kinds. The goddesses of fortune, the queens. Goddesses of fortune means Lakshmi, who's there in Vaikuntha with Lord Narayan in all his multitude of forms, and she's there with each one. So the goddesses of fortune, then the queens, means the queens of Lord Krishna in Dwaraka, and the milkmaids of Vraja, who are the foremost of all. And please listen to this. These consorts all proceed from Radhika. Do you get the idea? They're all coming expansions of Srimati Radharani. They're not just, they have, what to speak of independence, they're actually her, but in different forms and manifesting herself to different degrees. And now the next verse, 76. Avatari Krishna Yaiche Kare Avatara Amshini Radhahaite Tina Ganera Vistara. Just as the fountainhead, Lord Krishna, is the cause of all incarnations, so Sri Radha is the cause of all these consorts. 77. Vaibhavagana yena tanra anga vibhuti bimba pratibimba rupa mahishira tati. The goddesses of fortune are partial manifestations of Srimati Radhika, and the queens are reflections of her image. So manifesting in different ways and to different degrees. Verse 78. Lakshmi Gana Tanra Vaibhava Vilasamsha Rupa Mahishi Gana Vaibhava Prakasha Swarupa. The goddesses of fortune are her plenary portions, and they display the forms of Vaibhava Vilas. The queens are of the nature of her Vaibhava Prakash. We will not go into that. So that's a little bit about the Lakshmis and the queens in Dwaraka. Then verse 79. Akara swabhava bede vraja devi gana kaya vyuha rupa tanra rasira karana. The Vraja Devis, this means, of course, the gopis of Vrindavan. The Vraja Devis have diverse bodily features. They are her expansions, and they are the instruments for expanding rasa. Verse 80. Bahukanta vinanahe Rasira ulasa lilara sahaya lagi bahuta prakasha. Without many consorts, there is not such exaltation in rasa. Therefore, there are many manifestations of Srimati Radharani to assist in the Lord's pastimes. Yes, many different forms of Srimati Radharani. Many, many, many. And each one of them manifests some particular characteristic of her form and or of her character. And verse 81. Taramaje vraje nana bhava rasa bedhe Krishna ke karaya rasadika lilas vade. Among them are various groups of consorts in Vraja who have varieties of sentiments and mellows. They help Lord Krishna taste all the sweetness of the rasa dance and other pastimes. And then, what did we just read? Verse 82. Govinda Nandini Radha, Govinda Mohini, Govinda Sarvasva, Sarvakanta Shiromani. Radha is the one who gives pleasure to Govinda. And she is also the enchantress of Govinda. She is the be-all and end-all of Govinda and the crest jewel of all his consorts. So I think if you were listening carefully to the series of verses we just read, and we just concluded again with the verse we began with initially. So if we had just read this verse and left it at that, it wouldn't have really sort of given Srimati Radharani the credit she is due, you could say, or it would not have made it so clear of what is her stature transcendently, so to speak, and her greatness and her wonderfulness. I mean, it is truly wonderful. But these other verses we read, they helped us to get the idea how vast is Srimati Radharani. In fact, she is unlimited because, for example, the goddesses of fortune, it's not that there's just a large number of them, a few million or even a few billion or trillion or something like that, but actually there's an unlimited number. You know this, what do you call it? This little sort of, the figure they use to depict infinity, it's like an 8 sideways, kind of, or something along those lines. That's infinity. It means there's actually no end, and you can go on, but you're not going to come to the end at all. You're not going to even come near the end. In a certain sense, well, in a real sense, if you were to carry on for the rest of your life, just adding more, 1 quintillion and 1, or 1 septillion, or 1, I guess there's a dectillion, and 1, and 2, and you just went on. You would not come any closer. You would not come any closer to defining the actual number of forms of Krishna. But with each form of Krishna, there is also a form of Srimati Radharani. So you wouldn't come any closer to sort of defining that, yes, Srimati Radharani has X, whatever it is, number of forms. Yeah. Just like, well, I guess it's not the right sort of rasa, but anyway, just for the sake of mathematics, when Ravana on the last day of the battle came out of his palace on his own, because all the rest of his supporters, soldiers, followers, they were all dead, and so he's just on his own completely. He came out and saw all the followers and soldiers of Lord Ram, and the number was, it's Sanskrit number, I don't know what it would be in English, if it would be, anyway, I guess it would be possible to figure out some name, but in Sanskrit, 1 koti mahaoga, which means 1 followed by 64 zeros. Yeah, and so there's 1 koti mahaoga. Koti is 10 million. 1 koti, how about 10 koti? How about koti? But that's a big number, isn't it? 1 followed by 64 zeros. That's the number of soldiers he saw in front of him on the opposing side. But still, talk about false ego and, sort of blind optimism. He thought, no problem. I'll just wipe them all out myself. Unfortunately for him, didn't work like that. So Lord Krishna is unlimited. And that means, shall we say, the different forms of Lord Krishna are unlimited. And that means that the forms of Srimati Radharani are also unlimited. And they're all forms of her. It's not that they just look like her or, maybe speak like her or something like that, like an identical twin. I remember when Pankajankri Prabhu was alive, he's the brother of Jananivas. They're identical twins, pujaris in Mayapur. And I could never tell who was who. So you know what I did? I looked at their watches. Shri Radha Radhanath Shri Giri Govardhan Shri Caitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. And that was the only way I could tell. It was the only way. Otherwise, they were just too identical. So it's not like that. In that case, they're two people. They're just two independent entities. But all these different forms of Srimati Radharani, they are not one of them is an independent entity, just another person. They're all forms of her. This is just for the sake of perspective or scale like that, to appreciate who we're talking about. The most intimate associates, basically, are the Astasakis, and they embody her different qualities. Each one of them has one or two or a number, some number of her qualities. Not all of them by any means. But those qualities, each one of them has in full, as like Radharani has. Like, for example, Tungavidya has all of her mystical powers. All of them. But she doesn't, for example, have Radharani's expertise in speaking. But she has her mystical powers. Champaklata has Srimati Radharani's complete ability to cook sweets, but not subjects, etc. Sweets. So she's known as Mishta, means sweet. Mishta Hasa. Hasa means hand, sweet hands. Lalita Devi, but she doesn't have all the mystical powers. I'm sure she has some, but she doesn't have all. Tungavidya has all. And Lalita Devi, who is the closest of Srimati Radharani's 8 main girlfriends, Astasakis, she particularly has Radharani's expertise in speaking. And I'm sure she makes very nice sweets and she has some mystical power, but not like those others we mentioned. Yes, and so anyway, she's a very special person, Lalita, the leader of the Astasakis. But Radharani has all these qualities. If you look in Brahma Samhita, frankly, I forget the actual verse number, but there is a verse which lists out the 64 main qualities of Radharani. Any of you remember what it is? I can't remember. Is it 43 or what is it? Anyway, it's one of them, okay. Don't worry, it's there somewhere. Yes, 37. Let's just read this because it'll also help us appreciate Srimati Radharani. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavita Abhis Tabirya Eva Nija Rupa Taya Kalabi Go Loka Eva Nivasat Yakilatma Bhuto Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, residing in his own realm, Goloka, with Radha, resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of the ecstatic potency possessed of the 64 artistic activities. In the company of her confidants, Sakhis, embodiments of the extensions of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual rasa. So anyway, this is Srimati Radharani, and this is a big subject. This is not a small subject. This is a very profound, very deep subject, which, it's nice to sort of drown in and just submerge in and become saturated in. It really is wonderful. So now, in fact, it was mentioned there that Srimati Radharani embodies the ecstatic potency Hladini. Hladini means the pleasure potency of the Lord. There are 3 particular characteristics of the Lord, but they're characteristics of spirit, anything spiritual, anything which is truly and purely spiritual is Sat, Chit, Ananda. Satchit Ananda. Sat means eternal. Chit means fully conscious. And Ananda means fully blissful, or just blissful, because we're also, in our little ways, we're also Satchit Ananda. But Krishna embodies the totality of eternity, of all knowledge, all consciousness, and he's the embodiment of all pleasure, happiness, enjoyment, however you put it. She, Radharani, is the embodiment of that. So each one of those characteristics has a particular energy which contains all of the particular item. Yes. So, Chladni, Haribol. He wants to hear about Radharani. Let me hear about Radharani. Ah, good boy, good boy. Anyway, it's not easy being a child. We all have experience, but we forgot. But when you become a parent, or you just witness, then you get the idea again, hey, yeah, I must have had a hard time myself. So yeah, there's Sandhini is the actual energy which manifests eternity, Sat. Samvit is the energy which manifests, there's, to sort of encapsulate it, it's like knowledge. It's not just knowledge like information, but it's also consciousness. Consciousness, what does consciousness mean? Just means to be conscious. Yeah, it's kind of very simple, actually. We are conscious. So many living entities are conscious, but how much knowledge does any one of them, or even all of them put together, have? But it's less than what Krishna has, because he has the totality of, however you want to put it, knowledge, consciousness, awareness, intelligence. And then the energy of ananda, of blissfulness, happiness, is Chladni. So Srimati Radharani is not just like a person who happens to possess a lot of happiness, but she is happiness, the pleasure potency in person, if we can sort of get our little heads around that. Oh, he's back, yes. Listen carefully, you'll love it. Yes, right. So she embodies the ecstatic potency. She is the pleasure potency in person, means she is actually Krishna's capacity, his ability to enjoy in the form of another person. Now, what does that mean, devotees? Does that mean that Krishna has lost his pleasure potency because now she has it all? What do you think? No. Krishna is a lot smarter than that. I tell you what, she was. So she is his pleasure potency, but he still has his pleasure potency. But now the whole idea is that by interacting with his ability to enjoy in the form of a separate person, the experience of the enjoyment increases. Yes, it increases unlimitedly. This is, I know it may sound kind of contradictory or just, even possibly like double talk, but it's not. Just think about it. And, if you chanted your rounds nicely this morning, you'll probably get it. I would say it depends on the degree how nicely you chanted your rounds this morning. And if you really chanted them nicely, then you'll really get it. Because your mind has now become surcharged, not with itself, but with spiritual potency. Yes, and therefore for devotees, like ordinary people, just ordinary people, we get from time to time, we get ordinary people coming in. There was a whole group yesterday, not a big group, but several, or I think maybe 10 at the most, or a bit less. People, from European-bodied people, and they're sort of, you could just tell that they were not familiar with it. And, it depends on the consciousness, but some people like that, we've had experience, they come in and they see the deities, and they think, what? What is this? Have they dressed up why did they dress up these statues? Or something along those lines. But then the devotees come in and see the deities, and the experience is very different. Of course, it also depends on if you chanted your rounds or how you chanted your rounds this morning. It does, I tell you what. That is the key, or a very important part of the key. But when the devotees come in and see the deities, it's like, wow, this is just amazing. It's just wonderful. Isn't it? Is it? She says it is, yeah. It is for the devotees. It's just such a wonderful experience. And even, after you've been chanting your rounds really well for a long time, you'll come in and you'll see the deity, and you won't just think that, wow, looks so beautiful, although that's part of it. But the deity may speak to you, because the deity is not just a statue. The deity is a form of the Lord who's just mercifully accepted that type of form, just so the devotees are able to interact in personal ways with the Supreme Lord, at least, to sort of learn how to interact personally. Yes, so this is a very interesting point. Krishna has his pleasure potency. We also have our pleasure potencies. We all enjoy, everybody has, every living entity pretty much has their pleasure potency, which manifests in whatever enjoyment they get from whatever they get enjoyment from in their lives. Even watching the Springboks. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, should I? But even watching the Springboks, at least if they win, that stimulates a certain type of person's pleasure potency. Their own sort of built-in capacity to enjoy. But of course, the problem is in material life that, there are two problems. One is the capacity, the amount of pleasure potency, the amount of ability to enjoy. Just like, people have different amounts of intelligence, different amounts of physical strength, and these types of capacities. So people have different amounts of the pleasure potency, which, they can enjoy happiness, pleasure, enjoyment to a certain degree, but beyond that, they can't really manage it. And then different types of pleasure potency. Like, do we have Springboks fans here? Oh, we've got one. You can just ask him what it's like. Well, I used to be an All Blacks fan, to tell you the truth. Oh, yes. So they're different, slightly different versions of the same type of pleasure potency. And what happens when the Springboks lose means the pleasure potency goes down the drain for a while. But Krishna has all the capacity to enjoy. But just like anyone, they would like to increase their enjoyment. And so therefore, there's so much, experimentation with different types of intoxicants. Of course, we're not into that sort of thing, but it's going on. If you keep up with the news a bit, you'd be aware they've invented types of drugs which were unknown when LSD and marijuana were really cool. Now there's other things. And that's just one example. So, but what is it? It's based on the aspiration. I want to increase my pleasure, diversify, increase by diversifying my experiences with my senses. So that's there, and Krishna has the same sort of idea. In fact, that's where our version of the idea came from, because Krishna has this idea. He wants to increase his enjoyment, even though it's just so fantastically far from anything we've ever experienced at all. But still he wants to increase it. So how to do that? He places his pleasure potency outside him as another person, a separate person, so to speak. She's actually part of him. But she's conducting herself as a separate person. And because she's the pleasure potency of him, she only thinks, how can I increase his pleasure? And so she comes up with all sorts of, interesting ideas or just amazing ideas, how to increase Krishna's pleasure. I'll give you just one little example. Radharani is expert in literally everything, but, all nice things at least, but one of those things is she's expert in cooking. We mentioned, right, who is it who has her ability to make sweets? Champak Lata. But Radharani is expert in sabjis too. And she makes, amazing samosas. What's your favorite prasadam? Pizza. You look like a pizza person, actually. She makes pizzas too. But they're literally out of this world. But anyway, she has been cooking for Krishna since time immemorial, which is just a way of trying to express eternity. She has been cooking for Krishna at least once a day, but generally twice a day, breakfast and evening. She has never repeated the same preparation. It's just, isn't it? It's just too much for us. Just say Hare Krishna, or just say Jai Shri Radhe or something like that, and just leave it at that, and don't bother trying to agitate your mind. What does that mean? Or, if Radharani produced a cookbook, you've seen Yamuna's cookbook, 1,000 pages, big size. What would Radharani's cookbook be like? Anyway, Jai Shri Radhe. So, it's just amazing, and it's wonderful. There's one temple in Mathura, just by Vishram Ghat, if you're familiar a bit with Mathura. Temple's called the Dwarkadish Temple, and on Govardhan Puja, they do big offering of food preparations. And usually the figure they try to reach is 3,000. And they usually manage to present 3,000 food preparations. Which, as I've been told, doesn't just mean rice with rice. And then number 2 is rice with peas. And number 3 is rice with cashews. And number 4 is yellow rice. No, it means different preparations. 3,000. I know some of you ladies are expert cooks because I have personal experience with many of you. But 3,000, sure, I don't know about that. So, but this is Srimati Radharani. She's always and only, and sort of by constitution, she's more or less incapable of thinking in any other way than how to increase Krishna's pleasure. Yeah, that's all she can think of. Like Mother Yashoda, she is, Prabhupada explains in the purport of 10th Canto, chapter 9, verse 20, she is not a jiva. She's not an ordinary living entity like us. She's a manifestation of Krishna's internal potency. Yeah, like Radharani. Yes. So Mother Yashoda, just by constitution, she is not capable of thinking in any other way than a motherly way towards Krishna, because that's what she is. That's just what she's made of, motherly love for Krishna. So Srimati Radharani then embodies the entire pleasure potency, and therefore she is given greater emphasis than, there's a presiding deity of the Sandhini potency, the potency of eternity. There's a presiding deity of the Samvit potency, the potency of knowledge, of consciousness, awareness, like that. And then there is Yoga Maya, who is the presiding deity of all of them put together. So Radharani, in that sense, is sort of, you could say, like a part of Yoga Maya, the internal spiritual potency of the Lord. But still, because the main thing for Krishna is not just how to increase my knowledge or how to become more eternal. How does that sound? No, I don't think it's real, but how to increase these things. He's into enjoying life. Krishna is into enjoying life. And generally we are into enjoying life, or I should say the conditioned souls are into enjoying life more than they're into cultivating knowledge or trying to live longer, unless that cultivating knowledge, they feel it will give them pleasure, or living longer will give them more pleasure. Basically, the conditioned souls are sort of obsessed, more or less, and just focused, fairly absolutely, not exactly, but to a very large degree on how can I enjoy more. And that's because we are little parts and parcels of Krishna. And in a sense, and in fact Prabhupada made the point, that if you want to understand Krishna, in one sense, just look at yourself. And then you'll get a fairly good idea in certain important respects of who is Krishna, what sort of person is Krishna, at least to some degree. So, but like this, because Radharani is just fully 100%, 108% or more, just absorbed totally in how to give Krishna pleasure, then she's always coming up with creative ways of doing that, including, as we mentioned, every day, what's going to be on the menu today? Yeah, something which she has never done before, but which is just completely fantastic. Right, so this is Srimati Radharani. She knows nothing but Krishna. She sees nothing but Krishna. Even when her eyes are closed, she sees nothing but Krishna. And I'm sure you're familiar with the story that Srimati Radharani, it's said, we were talking, who was it? Was it with you? Maybe it was. It was someone. That Radharani, her appearance in this world, was it yourself? There's this story, and I've heard it many times, and even at her appearance place, that's what they tell you, that she came floating down the Yamuna in a lotus, right? Something like that. And there was Maharaj Vrishabhanu, who's like her eternal father, and he saw, look at this beautiful little baby just coming down the river in this lotus flower. So he managed to get hold of her, and she was just such an enchanting looking little girl that he thought, let's just adopt her. Not that they have no children. Well, actually, they don't have older children. They have younger children than Radharani. So anyway, he took her back and showed her to his wife and to everybody. And everyone thought, yeah, fantastic, just absolutely wonderful. But there was one problem. Her eyes were closed. And so they tried to sort of manipulate her eyelids and open her eyes. They couldn't. It was like they were fastened closed. So anyway, he and Mother Kirtida, they tried their best, but they couldn't do it. So what to do? Doesn't matter. She's so beautiful, and she's our child. That's enough. So Lord Krishna had appeared what is it? What day was Janmashtami? What was the date? The 16th, was it? 16th. Today is the 31st. So it's like 15 days or thereabouts later that she appeared. So Krishna had already appeared a little before, and they were very good friends. Vrishabhanu and Kirtida were very good friends with Nanda Maharaj, Mother Yashoda, and they would visit each other regularly. And so, one day, not long after Vrishabhanu and Kirtida had basically adopted Srimati Radharani, but Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda came down with little Krishna. And it means just, we're talking about days, not weeks, not months, just days later. And parents being parents, they got started talking about what? Their children. Parents being parents. Their amazing and transcendental children. And they got so absorbed in that, they didn't notice that Krishna had crawled away. Now you might say, someone might say, now hang on. Krishna, it's days after Radharani appeared, not weeks, not months. How did Krishna crawl? Because when children are, just a few weeks old, they can't crawl. Any of you are parents, you know that. So how did Krishna crawl? Ha ha, caught you out. But the thing is, if you remember, the pastime that when Krishna first appeared, he just stepped out of Devaki's womb. He had been inside. He just stepped out and manifested a form like a Vishnu form with 4 arms and the different club and disc and lotus and so on and so forth, and fully dressed with, a crown and so on and so forth. But then he changed himself back into little, like newborn baby, and carried on like that from then on. So if Krishna can do that, then when he is perhaps, what would you say, 3 or 4 weeks old, or 5, 6 weeks, probably less than 5 or 6, probably 3 to 4 weeks old, if he wants to crawl, he can crawl. And he did. So there you go. Ha ha ha. To you. If you have, some complaint. So Krishna crawled over there to the cradle that Radharani was lying on her back. The little cradle was situated on the floor. And Krishna crawled over and sort of crawled up on the side of the cradle and looked over at Radharani. And you know what happened, don't you? She opened her eyes. So Krishna was the first thing or whatever that she saw. And for the rest of her time on this planet, she never saw anyone else. Even if she looked at someone else, but she just saw Krishna. Directly or indirectly, but completely. Yes. So Radharani, she is very special. I mean, that's sort of the understatement of the year. She is truly unique. Truly unique. Just saturated with love for Krishna. And just totally absorbed in thought of how to increase Krishna's pleasure. And therefore, she is expert in doing things, and she only does things which give Krishna pleasure. This is Srimati Radharani. So, devotees, what to say? I mean, I don't want to... Well, okay, let me just say one more thing. Let me say one more thing. That there is, Krishna speaks one verse. The special features of the nature of Srimati Radharani, which Krishna was just so fascinated with. Let me read this verse. This is Lord Krishna speaking. It's also from Adi Lila chapter 4. I don't actually have the verse number, but you can look it up if you want. Although my beauty defeats the beauty of 10 million cupids, although it is unequaled and unsurpassed, and although it gives pleasure to the three worlds, seeing Radharani gives pleasure to my eyes. The vibration of my transcendental flute attracts the three worlds, but my ears are enchanted by the words of Srimati Radharani. Although my body lends fragrance to the entire creation, the scent of Radharani's limbs captivates my mind and heart. Although the entire creation is full of different tastes because of me, I am charmed by the nectarian taste of the lips of Srimati Radharani. And although my touch is cooler than 10 million moons, I am refreshed by the touch of Srimati Radhika. Thus, although I am the source of happiness for the entire world, the beauty and attributes of Sri Radhika are my life and soul. So devotees, there are these special qualities of Radharani which Krishna perceived and understood, and like that basically. So on the basis of those, wanting to experience them more deeply and more clearly, Krishna appeared as Lord Caitanya. So what are those for? Tune in later today and find out. Although you can look them up if you want. But otherwise, yeah. So we'll talk about these things later on. Hare Krishna. Srimati Radharani ke. Srimati Radharani ke. Srimati Radharani ke. Shri Radhashtami Mahotsava ke. Go Premanande. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I paid him 10 rands to do that, by the way. Okay, that's it for the time being. Now continue with our program, our normal program, chanting, dancing, and feasting. Today it's chanting, dancing, and fasting, but only till midday, so don't worry.